Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about Hasbro, and I wanted to talk about global financing connected to Dungeons & Dragons and why it's so critical, and why Dungeons & Dragons really is so much more important and so much more worthy of praise than any OSR or indie game, tabletop role-playing game on the planet. So right now, we're in a pretty strange space, right? So like we have the quest for the Eternal Staircase coming out. It's the brand new D&D canon hardback. That might not even be the name. I just finished getting through Vecna, Eve of Ruin, and my entire playlist actually will be up within a week. I think, you know, it's about 80-90% through right now. And Vecna, Eve of Ruin just dropped, right? And it's on the shelves and it's actually there. But I had a conversation with someone I know who plays Dungeons & Dragons, and it was really strange. We had this long conversation, and he was like, "Oh, I don't like this about the new Paladin. I don't like this about the Ranger." And I was like, he's like, "Well, what do you think?" And I was like, "Oh, I love all this stuff. I think it's excellent. I really trust the direction they're going. I think they're, you know, doing a lot to stabilize the builds, and, you know, I'm really excited about it." He's like, "Oh, well, you know, I think making Smite a bonus action is nerfing the Paladin, and I think they've nerfed all, you know, and right now the Fighter and the Ranger are, you know, stronger DPS than the Paladin." And I was like, well, that makes complete sense. Like, a Paladin can talk to a god. Like, they shouldn't have the same DPS as a Ranger or a Fighter. That's completely disconnected from understanding Dungeons & Dragons narrative, right? Like, you're not thinking about the narrative at all. You're just thinking about the mechanics, right? And what's really, I think what really kind of blew me away, and what really kind of got me the way of there is, and it came out that this person, and I was like, "Hey, you know, we're having this conversation, but are you going to buy the new books?" And he's like, "Oh, no, my table isn't interested in any of the new books, so I won't buy the new books because my table isn't interested." And I was like, "What?" Like, well, and I was like, "Well, why are we having this conversation? Why did we bother? You know, why am I listening to your complaints about books you're not going to buy?" Right? Like, you know, like, it was very odd, right? And so, you know, so here's the kicker, right? There's a lot of pressure on Hasbro right now, and they're putting books onto the market. They're putting books on the shelves in tabletop role-playing game stores, and frankly, there are a lot of people who are holding their breath, and they're not going to buy until they see, actually, not even until they see the books, until they've seen the coverage of what's going to be in the books, right? And then they're going to be like, "Well, I'll buy it or I won't," right? And right now, I think there's an incredible amount of strain and stress, and people are waiting and not buying the current D&D canon hardbacks at the rate they normally do. And I would bet they're probably down 50% in sales, right? Now, the reality is we don't know that. We don't know the numbers. No one knows the numbers on any current Dungeons & Dragons era canon hardbacks. Nobody, right? Like, nobody knows the numbers, right? Well, no one who Hasbro is like, keep those numbers secret, and they're 100% right. Like, the community would do nothing but use the information as a dagger to harm Hasbro, and there'd be no celebration, right? Like, and that's where we're at right now. Like, literally, D&D hate is a cottage industry, right? And millions are made on it, right? And so the reality is, you know, Hasbro's like, we're going to keep this secret, and so none of the commentators, no one knows what the numbers on these canon hardbacks. But my estimate is that they're down 50%, right, in sales. And the reason why is people are like, I need to wait. I need to see if these 2024 core rule books are going to function as an infinite edition, if they're going to be backwards compatible. And so there's an incredible amount of strain and stress on current sales for D&D canon hardbacks, right? Now, that's okay. Why? Because Hasbro is a global platform, right? And literally right now, money from Peppa Pig, money from Transformers, money from Power Rangers, money from Monopoly, money from, you know, Clue, money from money from Lego, money from Magic the Gathering is protecting Dungeons & Dragons. Because right now, Dungeons & Dragons is in trouble, right? And if it had to compete on its own, like every OSR and every indie does, because none of them are owned by global brands that have any kind of like resilience, except Marvel Multiverse role-playing game, and that one's brand new. It's not even, it's barely a year old, right? So, so the vast majority, OSR and indie, don't have this, right? So the reality is, Dungeons & Dragons can take risks. It can do things that no one else in the OSR or the indie, because if any other company in the OSR or the indie took 50% sales cuts for 6 to 18 months, they go out of business, right? And many of them do. Many of them do, right? Like, I think Asmodee was recently sold, right? Like, it is extremely actually, it's just like Netflix. Dungeons & Dragons is the only actual viable, profitable tabletop role-playing game in the world. Everything else is like, you know, every other system really isn't profitable and could never, right, do the innovation or the, you know, the take the risks that Dungeons & Dragons does. And so Dungeons & Dragons does just that. It takes these risks. Dungeons & Dragons is the first tabletop role-playing game ever to attempt an infinite edition, right? Saying there will never be another edition ever. This is not 6th edition. This is the 2024 core rulebooks. And you need to start thinking about Dungeons & Dragons from year 0, right, 1974, year 10, 1984, year 20, 1994, year 30, 2004, year 40, 2014, and year 50, 2024. It's all the same handbook. It's all the same player's handbook. It's all the same DMG. It's all the same monster manual. There are no additions. Additions are died. Additions have died or are for copy clone loser companies that don't do their own thing. They just follow us, right? So Dungeons & Dragons is doing the hard work. They're taking the risk. And the fact that they are a global brand is why they can do that, right? Because they can absorb losses for 6 to 18 months because they have multi-million-dollar IP properties. So while people continue to... Did you guys know there's a boycott on Hasbro? But it's been so ineffective that, like, I listen to D&D news literally every day. And some lawyer commentator was like, D&D lawyer commentator was like, hey, remember our boycott? I'm like, what? Like, so there's a lot going on, you know, but the reality is only Dungeons & Dragons can take these risks. And I'm very proud of them, and I'm very thankful to them for doing this and staying focused and doing the hard thing first, you know, because, and it's very important, and we have to be thankful to Hasbro for doing the right thing and being the best guardian Dungeons & Dragons has ever had since 1999. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. The important part is when I hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.